The first sign something was wrong wasn't the calendar invite. It was how quiet the hallway got when I walked in that morning. You know that kind of silence? The fake polite kind. Like someone just farted during a eulogy and no one's brave enough to laugh? Yeah. That. My name wasn't even on the whiteboard anymore. After 17 years of keeping this company clean, audit-proof, and federally blessed, I didn't even merit a dry erase marker. The invite just said reorg update mandatory. Room 3C. No agenda, no time to prepare. I walked in, and there he was, Ethan. New VP of Operational Transformation, whatever the hell that meant. Still had the LinkedIn bright sheen of a man who thought agile stand-ups and cold brews could solve systemic compliance risk. Fresh from a boutique consultancy that billed more for buzzwords than solutions. Mid-30s, tight shirt, expensive haircut that screamed, "My mom says I'm special." He clicked to the next slide like he was revealing a magic trick. Legacy overhead optimization, it said, right above a list of names. Mine was third. We're pivoting to a leaner, more adaptive compliance structure, Ethan said, like he was offering me a goddamn sandwich. Your role has been categorized as redundant. I didn't cry. I didn't blink. I just stared at that screen and tried to remember what it was like to matter in that room. Quick aside, if you've made it this far and want to hear how this all falls apart in the most spectacularly stupid way imaginable, make sure you hit that subscribe button and tap like. 97% of people just listen without supporting, and trust me, it really keeps the team motivated to keep bringing stories like this to light. Back to Ethan. He said it with this smug little half smile, like he'd just cleaned up someone else's mess. Except I was the one who built the system that passed 3 surprise federal inspections without a single infraction. I was the one who held the regulatory key to 5 subsidiaries and the only one who knew which certifications were due to expire in which quarter. But sure, Ethan, tell me again about streamlining. HR was there too. Megan, with her dead fish handshake and her laminated bullet points about transition resources. She tried to hand me a brochure. I handed it back. You'll have until 5 p.m. to gather your belongings, she mumbled, like she was the one being executed. I packed slowly, not because I was sad, but because I was methodical. Every single item I took, my nameplate, my paperweight, even the pen set from the 2013 Ethics Summit was intentional. I left behind only one thing, a manila envelope labeled Clause 7.4, Certification Continuity. Slid it gently across Megan's desk before I walked out. She blinked at it. What's this? I smiled. Faint, tired, just enough to be remembered. Just a note for the new leadership. It outlines what happens to every federal license when the primary compliance officer is terminated without reassignment protocol. Ethan didn't even look up. He was already too busy realigning. I walked out without a single word of protest. Not because I didn't have anything to say, but because I knew the system better than anyone in that building. And I knew that when it broke on Monday morning, they wouldn't even know where to start looking. They popped champagne in the break room like they just cured cancer. Ethan strutted through the floor like a rooster who'd finally pecked his way to middle management glory. Fresh chapter, he called it. New energy. Nimble compliance. No more red tape. Translation. They'd fired the woman who held their legal skeleton together with dental floss and prayer because her spreadsheets weren't on Google Drive. I watched from the lobby as balloons went up. A junior analyst snapped a selfie with the caption, by bureaucracy waving hand #NewEra #StreamlineQueen. Cute. Nobody asked who filed the last 3 years of environmental exemptions that kept our Arizona plant from being bulldozed. Or who personally sat in a government trailer during that EPA audit while the rest of them pretended to be at lunch. No one even bothered to check the contract, which was adorable, really, considering half their security protocols only existed because I created them from scratch after the CFO's nephew downloaded LimeWire on a company laptop in 2011. But sure, Ethan, go be agile. That night I sat at my kitchen table. Old oak. Slight scorch mark from a failed candle experiment in '09. The same table where I'd signed every annual renewal with the Department of Regulatory Infrastructure. My cat, Benny, curled up on a folder labeled Active Federal Dependencies. He always did have good taste. I didn't cry. I didn't scream, but I did open my laptop, one tab at a time, one login after another. First, multi-factor token, personal device tied to my biometric. Not company issued, despite what Ethan thought. I clicked disable. The interface asked, "Are you sure you want to revoke key authority for primary license access?" Yes. Yes, I am. Second, regional compliance database. Quiet archive. Not deletion, just a hold. Not a single line of policy was broken. I'd written the policy. Internal access would trigger credential checks Monday morning. Checks that would fail. Not because I sabotaged anything, but because I wasn't there to pass them. Third, I opened a cold, untouched document, titled it, Federal License Authority, Reassignment Denied. It wasn't petty. It was protocol. Reassignment required 60 days notice and dual-signed chain of custody authorization. Neither existed, which meant that come Monday, the system wouldn't just glitch. It would comply with federal law by denying operational access. This wasn't revenge. This was reality. They removed the signature from the foundation and expected the building to stay upright. I saved the file, encrypted it, archived it on a personal drive, labeled simply, contingency. Then I made tea. Real tea, not that peppermint garbage they stocked in the office kitchen. Something black and strong that tasted like thunderclouds. Benny jumped on the table, pawed at the mug, blinked like he knew something was coming. So did I. I didn't ruin anything. I just stopped holding it together. Monday hit like a shovel to the face. 7:12 a.m. First ticket logged. Can't access regulatory server. By 7:18, 5 more. Then 20. By 8 a.m., payroll was offline, and the accounting lead, poor Deborah, looked like she'd aged a decade. Every system tied to compliance started returning the same message. Primary credential invalid. Authority voided. Ethan swaggered in at 9 o'clock like it was just another sunrise. Coffee in one hand, reusable notebook in the other, probably full of half-baked flowcharts and a to-do list that started with disrupt. He barely made it to his glass office before IT cornered him. "We've got credential failures across every compliance link system," they told him, eyes twitching. He waved it off. "It's probably just residual permissions from Friday. Run a system refresh, reset tokens, and reassign admin." Someone in legal piped up, hesitantly. "We can't. She was the admin sole authority on the license. There's no succession file." Ethan blinked. "Wait, what?" That was when the federal pings hit. Not emails, not warnings, pings. The company's encrypted line with the Department of Industrial Safety lit up with 2 back-to-back alerts. License holder verification failed. Operational compliance revoked pending audit. They didn't even have time to read them before the real pain arrived. Out in Nevada, our solar infrastructure team was setting up a site install. They got flagged in the permit system. Halted on site. Permit ID returned a failure. They called HQ screaming. By the time the 3rd regional site reported project hold due to invalid compliance credentials, it was too late to pretend it was anything but catastrophic. Back at HQ, legal started digging. One poor paralegal pulled up the original federal license registry file. Line 2. Registered license holder. My name. Line 5. Clause 7.4. Termination of license upon credential holder dismissal without formal reassignment. Silence. Ethan kept saying the same thing over and over. It's gotta be an IT glitch. There's no way she was the only one tied to the system. That would be a governance failure. It wasn't. I'd warned about that exact scenario in a policy memo 3 years ago, but they never read it, too busy digitizing lunch surveys. IT tried pinging my old access points. Dead. Legal left 3 voicemails. HR emailed a clarification request, marked urgent. Me? I was sitting in my garden with Benny, a cup of thundercloud tea, and a paperback I hadn't touched in years. Phone on airplane mode. I wasn't unreachable because I was hiding. I was unreachable because I was gone. And now, for the first time in 17 years, they were going to have to find out what not knowing looked like. By 11:43 a.m., The office was no longer just confused, it was trembling. The receptionist, poor Shannon, had already cried twice. She buzzed legal, stammering something about men in suits asking for the compliance lead. Ethan rolled his eyes and muttered something about audit windows being routine. They weren't auditors. Two agents walked in like a thunderclap. No smiles. Black binders. Crisp jackets with the Department of Federal Oversight crest on the breast. They didn't wait for introductions. "Who's your acting license authority?" the taller one asked. No small talk, no handshakes. Just the question dropped like a guillotine. Ethan straightened his shoulders and smiled that confident little MBA smile. "Our compliance team is currently transitioning to a more agile." The shorter agent cut him off. "No, sir. Who holds your operational license? Because as of 9:02 this morning, your digital certifications were marked void in our federal system. That means under regulatory law, you're operating as a ghost entity, which is a felony." You could hear the silence spreading across the floor like smoke. Legal looked like they'd swallowed a wasp. The junior paralegal, Danielle, I think, stammered and started digging through her shared drive, clicking wildly, scrolling for something, anything. She pulled up the folder labeled license _master final _net _. One click, one file. Up came the registry. Everyone leaned in. At the top, bold black letters. Registered federal license holder. My full legal name. A few lines down. Clause 7.4. Certification continuity requirement. All operational authority is terminated upon the dismissal, resignation, or incapacitation of the registered holder without formal reassignment documented through DFO 47 protocol. The air left the room. Danielle whispered, We never filed the 47. There's nothing in the system. No reassignment. Nothing. The agent nodded slowly, expression unreadable. Then you're in breach. As of this morning, your company is legally forbidden from processing payments, accessing regulated client data, executing contracts, or engaging in infrastructure installation. Effective immediately. Payroll froze. Vendor systems disconnected. Field ops radioed in asking why their tablets couldn't even open the compliance app. One of the engineers, Mike, from facilities, said, Wait, I thought IT was fixing this? Then louder, like a man in a sinking boat trying to find the captain, Where's the fix? There was no fix. Ethan just stood there blinking like he'd been hit with a 404 error in real life. This doesn't make sense. We didn't need her. She was legacy. That word again. Legacy. A word for something outdated, obsolete, forgotten. But the thing about legacy systems is they're holding the whole damn building together. Until you pull the wrong thread. And now the feds were here with scissors. The CEO was on a yacht somewhere off the Amalfi Coast, halfway through a glass of Barolo and a massage from someone half his age and none of his wife's temperament, when his satellite phone rang. He didn't answer it the first time, or the second, but on the third ring, when the screen flashed legal urgent, he grunted, waved off the masseuse, and finally picked up. What? He barked, already annoyed that his gelato was melting. Sir, we have an emergency, said the voice on the line. It was Amanda from legal. Her voice was shaking. He rolled his eyes. If this is about Q3 revenue, tell finance to handle it. I'm offline for the next. No, sir. We've been shut down. Silence. What do you mean, shut down? Federal oversight agents arrived this morning. All operational licenses are invalid. Field projects are halted. We can't process payroll. Systems are locking out region by region. He sat up straight. The wine glass tipped and shattered on the teakwood deck. Is this a cyber attack? No, sir. This compliance. All licenses were registered under one person. She was terminated on Friday during the reorg. There was no reassignment protocol. Number 47 filing. He stared at the horizon, blinking slowly. Who? He asked flatly. Amanda's voice got quiet. Your compliance lead. My name. A beat. Then another. And then a roar so loud it cut through international waters and 3 decks of yacht insulation. Do you know what you've done? The crew paused mid-turn. A chef in the galley dropped a pan. Somewhere below deck, a Spotify playlist auto-paused itself out of fear. She was the continuity, he growled. The FING signature. Every license. Every permit. You imbeciles just shot the golden goose because some PowerPoint prints didn't like her font size. We didn't know. She told you. She's been saying it for years. Clause 7.4. You ever read the damn binder labeled Catastrophic Risk Pathways? Because she wrote it. Amanda tried to explain. Said something about Ethan. Said something about transition planning. He was already barking at his assistant to book a jet. No layovers. I want to be stateside before that idiot files another Slack message. Back at headquarters, Ethan stood in the boardroom, sweating through his slim-fit button-down as legal updated the directors. His phone buzzed. Caller ID CEO incoming call. He didn't answer. He couldn't. He just stared at the screen, wishing he could crawl inside it and delete the last 72 hours of his career. Half a world away, the CEO stood at the bow of the yacht, the wind whipping through his hair, the phone clutched in a death grip. His empire was bleeding out because someone had decided 17 years of quiet competence wasn't flashy enough to fit the new brand. And now the only person who could stop the hemorrhage wasn't answering the phone. By Tuesday morning, the emails started stacking like bad karma. Subject line, urgent, reinstatement proposal. Subject line, please call me, we need you. Subject line, bonus offer plus remote flexibility. Let's discuss. All from people who wouldn't make eye contact with me 2 weeks ago. All written in the panic tone of executives who've just realized the fire escape was made of paper. I didn't respond. Not to Megan from HR, who left a voicemail pretending we'd always had such mutual respect. Not to Ethan, whose message actually said, "Hey, I think there's been a misunderstanding." And definitely not to legal, who sent a desperate 3-sentence email attaching a blank reinstatement contract and the words, "Name your terms." No. Instead, I put on my navy blazer. The one with the frayed inner seam and the hidden pocket where I once tucked a USB drive during a data breach audit. Worn, quiet, and built to last like me. I walked into the coffee shop on 5th and Juniper like it was any other Tuesday. Sat at the corner booth. Ordered tea, Darjeeling this time. No thunderclouds, just calm. At 9:03 a.m., my guest arrived. Black turtleneck, blazer with no lapel, smartwatch already buzzing with alerts. Her name was Leslie, CTO of our largest regional competitor. The company that always came second in federal contracts because we held the certification advantage. "Thanks for meeting me," she said, sliding into the seat across from me. She didn't waste time. "We heard what happened. Can't believe they let you go." I smiled. "Just barely." "Believe it." She leaned in. "Is it true you wrote the compliance structure they're now bleeding from?" I took a slow sip. "It's true I spent 17 years building a system designed not to collapse under stupidity. I made no guarantees against arrogance." She laughed, then composed herself. "We'd like to discuss possibilities. We're preparing for expansion. 3 new facilities, 2 federal contracts pending. But we need a compliance spine. Someone who can not only ensure legal stability, but actually be the license." My heart didn't race. It didn't need to. I'd already lived through the part where you get erased. This was something else. Something colder. Sharper. I spoke softly, but with purpose. "Then you need someone who understands the system isn't just rules. It's language. And if your competitors don't speak it fluently, you win by default." She nodded like a woman who'd finally found the answer in a sea of buzzword consultants. Across the table, her assistant was already pulling up draft partnership terms. Not a job offer, leverage. A relationship built on what I could bring, not what I had to prove. Back at my old office, they were still calling. Still panicking. Still wondering how to untangle a system none of them had ever bothered to understand. But here, this woman across the booth, she listened. And for the first time in a long damn while, I wasn't the invisible woman who kept the wheels turning behind the curtain. I was the curtain, and they just discovered what happens when it falls. The CEO's private jet touched down just after dawn, still glinting with Amalfi Dew and bad decisions. He didn't stop to shake hands, didn't pose for the sycophants in the lobby who once bragged about accessibility culture. He went straight to the executive floor and slammed open the glass doors like God had returned from sabbatical, and he was pissed. Ethan was waiting with that haunted look managers get when they realized their MBA didn't come with a chapter on how not to accidentally tank a multinational corporation. You, the CEO said, voice like gravel under steel, are going to explain, right now, how the hell you let this happen. Ethan cleared his throat, tried to straighten his tie, then gave up halfway through. Sir, we were advised that she wasn't critical, that the compliance role could be integrated into. Integrated? The CEO spat. She was the FING infrastructure. The board assembled within minutes, half of them in golf polos and half in damage control suits. Someone pulled up the org chart. Another brought the compliance handbook. One brave soul opened the license file on the projector again. Her name, my name, top of every form, every contract, every clause. And there it was, bold black ink. Clause 7.4, certification continuity requirement. The CEO turned slowly to Ethan. Did you read this before you fired her? I skimmed the exit package, Ethan whispered, each syllable digging its own grave. You skimmed the clause that ties our entire federal license portfolio to a single employee? Ethan's silence was the closest thing to an honest answer he'd given in his entire career. Across the city, I sat in a high-rise meeting room with a view of the skyline my former employer no longer had access to. The rival firm's legal team slid the license transfer paperwork across the table. My name was already typed in Chief Compliance Officer, Strategic Expansion Division. The job title I never got from the company that bled me dry. My phone lit up with a call from the CEO. I let it ring twice, then picked up. His voice was quieter now, measured. I know we made a mistake. Silence. We'd like to offer you whatever terms you need to come back. Position, salary, title. Name it. I stood, walked slowly to the window, and looked out at the building I'd once kept alive through nothing but sheer precision and a near-obsessive understanding of the law. I'm no longer available. No anger. No triumph. Just fact. On the other end, he didn't respond. What could he say? There was no fixing this. You don't unburn a bridge after you dance on it with gasoline shoes. I hung up. That afternoon, the rival firm submitted formal paperwork to the Department of Federal Oversight to transfer operational license custody. Pending approval, but expected within 72 hours, which meant they'd now hold the keys to projects my former company could no longer touch. By evening, Ethan had packed his things in a box. No applause, no balloons, just the dull echo of his loafers against tile and the smell of a career freshly cremated. I didn't gloat. That's not my style. But I did pour myself a drink. Darjeeling again. Steady. Warm. The kind of tea you sip when the world finally realizes you weren't holding it back. You were the only one holding it up. Wednesday morning, I woke up to 3 missed calls and one headline that made the tea taste sweeter. Federal lockdown halts operations at Halcyon Dynamics. Right there on the homepage of every finance rag from Forbes to the penny-pushing tech blogs that normally couldn't spell compliance if you spotted them 5 letters. The article was brutal. Sources confirmed the firm's entire operational framework, licenses, certifications, and regulatory permits, was dependent on a single former employee whose dismissal triggered an automatic void. Projects across 4 states are frozen. Stock opened 19% down, the steepest drop since 2008. I didn't smile, but I did not smile. By noon, clients were demanding meetings, real clients, defense contractors, infrastructure bidders, state agencies who suddenly couldn't file their standard clearance renewals because the company's profile read non-compliant, under federal hold. Internally, the panic metastasized. Legal couldn't keep up. IT was doing damage control with no damage manual. Finance was fielding refund requests while praying payroll wouldn't bounce again. And Ethan? Resigned for personal reasons, the press release said. No quotes, no farewell email, just a vacuum where his curated swagger used to be. The board didn't hold back. Reports leaked of a shouting match behind closed doors. Someone allegedly slammed a binder. Someone else demanded a full audit of the reorg. And the CEO, well, he was still there. But now he looked like a man aging in dog years. Me? I sat in a sunlit office 12 floors above my old one. Same city, different skyline. Floor-to-ceiling windows. Real plants. Not the dusty plastic ficus that used to lurk outside the HR suite like a green guilt totem. A junior compliance analyst walked in, nervous but bright-eyed. Just confirming the license transfer packet was approved and filed, she said. Regulators sent over their congratulations. I nodded. Thanks, Rachel. Good work. She lingered a second. It's kind of wild what happened with them. You okay? I looked out the window. Across town, I could just make out the rooftop of my former building. A blur of glass and confusion. I'm fine, I said gently. That wasn't my fire to put out. Because the truth was, I didn't destroy them. I didn't hack the servers. I didn't sabotage a damn thing. I just left. And their arrogance did the rest. When you build a house on a single support beam, you don't blame the beam when it finally walks away. You blame the architects, the ones too proud to notice the foundation had a name. The pen was heavier than I expected. Not in weight, ink, and plastic like any other, but in history, in everything it meant. The document before me was crisp, clean, typed by hands that respected the gravity of what it was authorizing. Federal License Reassignment Authorization. Final. 12 pages. 3 sections. 1 signature. And that signature was mine. Across the table sat Leslie, the rival CTO who'd never once spoken over me in the 6 days we'd worked together. She watched me not with impatience, but reverence. She knew exactly what this meant. Not just a paperwork shuffle. Not a rebound hire. This was a tectonic shift. A transfer of market control from a collapsing ego factory to a firm that understood the power of knowing where the rules live and who keeps them breathing. I read every line one more time. Not because I didn't trust them, but because it felt holy. Then I signed. The final curl of the N in my name sealed a future no one else had seen coming. An email pinged a second later. From the Department of Federal Oversight. Subject: confirmation and appreciation. Body: thank you for your professionalism during this transition. Your diligence has ensured continuity of compliance in a high-risk sector. We look forward to continued collaboration. No fanfare, no confetti, just respect. The kind I'd waited 17 years to receive. I slipped the pen into my blazer pocket, the navy one, with the frayed seam I'd never quite fixed. Let it stay imperfect. Like me. My new assistant knocked gently on the glass wall. Here's your updated cards, she said, handing me the fresh stack. Chief Compliance Officer. Strategic Expansion Division. Different logo. Better paper stock. I turned one over in my hand and stared at it for a moment longer than I should have. Then I looked out across the skyline, same view, different angle. Somewhere out there, Halcyon Dynamics was still hemorrhaging into the press cycle, trying to convince shareholders that everything was under control. That this was temporary. Recoverable. It wasn't. Because they didn't just lose a person. They lost the only damn reason they were allowed to operate. I wasn't the admin. I wasn't the legacy hire. I was the signature. And now the lights were on somewhere else.